Hey everybody.
Yay!
Welcome to the 57th episode of Quarkus Insights. We have Erin today. You usually know her as a co-host. Today, we have her doing some real work.
I get to be in the special guest chair.
Yeah, and you don't get to chat.
I know, I don't get to type at all. It's going to be like, ah! That's all right.
It's going to be weird, but I'm sure you'll do awesome. So before we get into that, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. So we just released Quarkus 2.0.2. So you'll notice the symmetry there in the version 2.0.2. Just released, I think, either yesterday or today. So it has all the latest bug fixes. Some small issues we found with 2.0.1.
Long enough ago for Dependabot to make me update all my things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's going to update again because I think this week we're going to release 2.1 CR1. So that's going to be the first candidate release for 2.1. So that'll be a good thing for everybody to try out to give us early feedback before the final release. So I think, we got that out of the way. Any news you have on your side, Erin? Any world tour events coming up?
I do have a world tour coming up, but I don't remember. I have no concept of time. So it's sometime soon. I forget. We have the schedule on the Quarkus website, right?
I think we do. Yeah, I'll have
to check that out. I believe we do. So go check that out.
I'll check that out.
I'll then visit and get stickers and all kinds of things.
Excellent.
I don't remember where it is this summer. By the time we're done, you will have the calendar. We'll put it up before we leave.
I will.
We'll do it that way.
So what are you going to talk about? Yeah,
well, I'm going to talk about the CLI, but I should say, like, Max really wanted to be here. He's so excited about the CLI, and I have to kind of fill his shoes, but he's ridiculous excited about the CLI, so that's pretty fun.
Yeah, we've wanted this in for a while, but stars didn't align. But now, you've done so much work on it, so I think this is the best time to show it off, right?
Yeah. So if we want to flip over to my screen, so when we started with the CLI, like the CLI existed earlier. So when was that, Georgia? Was it like, I don't know, May? I was like, here's the official bike shedding period. Come tell me what it is you like or you don't like. My screen still feels small. That's right. Yeah. So I'm only going to do the JBang install path right now. There's other ways. We're still working on more ways to be able to install it, so you can use like all of your favorite installer things, but we're going to use JBang.
So we can expect like SDK in the future.
SDK Man and Brew, and we'll get all those. We're working through them slowly, right? But the JBang one,
or which is the new
JReleaser, is what we're using. Yes. So
cool.
Yes. So it will be JReleaser driven releases.
Excellent.
It should cover all the things. So we're working through the automation of that and how we're going to build the platform native images. And there's steps that we're going to go through to try to make sure all that stuff out is ready. Nice. Now, as of right now, the JBang release still points to, so like if I install this, which I've done 20 million times, it says, okay, you already have Quarkus. So if I show this Quarkus CLI, okay, now you're going to watch how, this is why I don't live code. I'm the slowest typer ever while talking. I got executive function problems, I guess. So it's still it's still showing 2.0.1 final. So there is a super secret sneaky hack that you can do with JBang. It's a big long command line though. And that basically says, install as Q2 the runner jar from my local Maven repo, which totally works.
Yeah, but I don't think many people are going to do that.
Nope, not many people will do that. But if you're playing with a CLI locally, any kind of CLI, your own CLI project, JBang can do that, and then it sets up your alias to do the Java jar and all the stuff. So it's like a whole bunch of stuff you didn't have to do. Nice. There's a reason I wanted to show that though, and I'll get to it in a second. So just know I have like the 2.0.1 final client as Quarkus and the 2.0.2 final as Q2. We'll get back to that. So one of the things we wanted to do with, I actually don't have tab completion installed because I'm ridiculous. So one of the things we wanted to do with this release of the CLI was to really help and simplify and streamline all of the crap you have to, because the Maven archetype, the Maven command to create a project is really long.
Oh yeah, the only time I can use that one is if I have it in my bash history and I'll find it there with Control R. Otherwise, there's no way I can type that.
Exactly. So you can see like the way I've tried to nest. One of the things I just obsessed over, by the way, is the help. So if you're like, this isn't clear in the help, tell me and I'll go fix it. Because one of the things I think is super important about a CLI is that you can just use it without having to go to the manual. It should explain itself, right?
Absolutely.
Well enough. That should be obvious, but let me tell you, sometimes. So minimally, like let's just do a create with no arguments at all. And what it's going to do is it will create a project, apply some code starts. So we have some sample code. There are defaults here. So a code with Quarkus directory just comes out. So if we go into that directory, which is always the thing, let's just open. And of course, it stayed on the window. It stayed in the right place. Awesome. Super duper. Yes.
All right.
I'm usually, I tried. I wasn't sure if it was going to remember the settings, but lo and behold, it did. So that's awesome. So it generated a pretty simple project. So it did all the POM stuff, and we have for the POM the Quarkus attributes, which make it easy for us to change later. And it has, so this is our dependency management thing. So it's bringing in the BOM we want, and it brings in some dependencies, including JUnit and REST, or rest assured. So we're ready for running tests. And it's got the stuff that Quarkus prefers for native and to do native tests, right? So we're all ready to go. Yeehaw. So if we open the terminal, I'm going to open it in there, even though that's sort of redundant, but this is cool. So we can now do, from within this directory, we can do Quarkus dev. And this will kick off dev mode. And it'll do the build.
Oh, cool. So no, right, you don't need to do MVN Quarkus dev. You just do Quarkus dev.
Quarkus dev, and you don't have to remember that it's because also we'll get to this next. But like the name of the target is different for Gradle, but this you don't care. It's like if you have to go between Maven and Gradle projects, which maybe you do, maybe you don't, but the command is the same regardless. And so I just want to show this because this is also super cool. Stuart is amazing. So
everybody knows that.
I know, but it's like, this is so fun. So you do Quarkus dev. We're in dev mode. I can resume the tests because, of course, what was created for you included some tests. See, so there's one test and it's passing. So if we go and do, like, I am on the fence. Sometimes somebody's going to shoot me right now in chat. I can already tell because I'm on the fence with test-driven development. Sometimes I think it's really awesome, and sometimes I get annoyed when people go for the 150% code coverage thingy.
Don't worry. I'll shield you. I'll shield you because they'll hate me. I don't like it at all.
Yeah,
I just can't work like that. That's all there is to it.
So this is one of those times where if I make the test, this is one of those times it's useful. Okay, see, my test failed because I just added an endpoint that doesn't freaking exist. But I know what the output should be, right? So I did the test first because in this case, Erin's preference, I'm testing a clear output here. This is like more of a behavior test, right? I'm not doing a JUnit, let me get into the exact method and make it so refactoring later is impossible.
Absolutely.
That's where I get absolutely, I go bonkers. But this is, I think, useful, right?
That I agree with. Yeah, if you have like high-level tests that just test like the end behavior you're expecting to implement, yeah, that's great. But yeah, unit tests.
So I'm going to add my goodbye. And you guys, if anybody's sharp, you'll notice I've already foobarred something, which is on purpose. So I can save this, and it'll be like, oh, it's saved. Oh, but your test still failed. I'm like, right. My paths are wrong. So I can move this. This has to go to vanilla. this has to go to goodbye, and I can save it. Yay! All my tests passed.
Excellent.
So I fixed it, right? So this is one of those cases where being able to run your tests continuously is, you know what the output is. Let me just do it until my output is fixed. And that can be really, really nice. And so Stuart has done. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Stuart has some really cool stuff in here. So I just want to highlight it because like I'm all in the command line here. I started Quarkus dev and now I'm just continuing with this console behavior. He's added all kinds of things to toggle how and when tests are run, how and when code is reloaded, how to make it like with this instrumentation-based reload, et cetera, like that kind of thing. It's like how to make it behave better if you have an IDE that wants to micromanage your compiles. You know, like there's all kinds of toggles in here, which is awesome.
Yeah, this console-based thing inside the terminal is, that's amazing.
Yeah, but right here I can do a D. Oh, look at that! There's my dev console.
And it opens,
that awesome. Alone has epically increased the utility of the dev UI for me. Because I can find it and I don't have to go fuss around. Anyway, nerdy things. So that's part of what the CLI does, right? So okay, I have
a question here for Quarkus dev. Okay, does the project version have to match the Quarkus CLI version for this Quarkus dev to work, or these Quarkus build? Okay.
Nope. I'll be honest. What build and dev are doing for all of the build tools we support, it's forking off. It's just doing all the parameter munging, and it's calling Maven or Gradle or JBang for you.
Excellent.
So it's not doing
that's
any...
what I was hoping for, yeah.
Now that's interesting. Let me, let's close this one. We can leave that. Well, this one's now dead, so let's just close that one. Whatever. Let's go back one. If I look at Quarkus create, if I do help here, you'll notice something. No, 2 dashes. It's going to yell at me. Or -H I should have done, I guess. I'm lazy. But you can see, actually, there's app and CLI. So there's 2 types. The app is the default. So if you type nothing, it'll just go to the app, which is usually what you want. But the create has many options. This is one of the things I wanted to show the difference between the 2.01 final and 2.02 final, because we did fix something based on feedback. So with the Quarkus create app, you can see if you had started just typing stuff, those would have had to be extension names. So we would have done Quarkus create rest easy reactive micrometer or something.
Right.
And that really confused some people. They didn't like that so much, but some of the other things in here, so you would have had to do like a -A to change the project name, to change your artifact ID. But here's what's interesting, right? So the default build tool is Maven, but I can use Gradle and I can use JBang. And it's just an option you put on there. You can also use Java, Kotlin, or Scala. It's just an option you put on that command line. And then there's some other things about, do you want any code? Do you want a wrapper installed? You could turn those off. And there's some ways to pre-assign app config. So if I look at Q2, I just want to show this a little bit. And I'm happy for people to yell and scream and say, that's confusing. Having it changed on the boundary is a little awkward. We just missed. But this is what will happen with Q2. So with Q2, if you just type a thing, it'll rename the project. Right? So if I just do my project, that becomes the artifact ID. It would replace code with Quarkus. If I say my group, my project, it would replace the org.acme code with Quarkus thing. Or I can do the whole thing and get all the version I want. And that's what you put at the end. And then you use a -X option for your extensions.
Nice.
And it does feel more natural.
Oh yeah, this is way more natural than the...
But this is one of those things, like I did all the bike shedding back there. I didn't get this feedback until after it went out. I'm like, you guys, come on. I asked you to play with it. What are you doing? What is it? Why are you telling me? Same thing, go away. Same thing will come back later. So if I just create an app and I say Gradle, I want a Gradle app. oops, code with Quarkus already exists, right? So I say other thing because that's where my brain is right now. So I'm using the Q2 one, so I can just type it. So that becomes my other thing. My brain. It doesn't do thing with stuff. No, it does thing, other thing. I'm surprised I didn't come up with monster names. I know, right? So Gradle has some quirks because Gradle really wants to use the Gradle daemon for all things. And so specifically for dev mode, that gets to be a little challenging because it wants to take over the universe and not give you your console back. So we actually do have Quarkus dev still works. And the Gradle output's a little noisy. We're going to figure out why that is. But so Quarkus dev still works, but it does. See, now it's mad about, so it's going to create a daemon. I really, Gradle's like nice sometimes, but the daemon stuff really makes me mad. So it actually goes through the build, and it will create the command that we need, and then it will run it separately. So we still get the CLI working in dev mode. So, I mean, not the CLI. We get your project in dev mode, so you still get all the hotness of continuous testing. So this is actually something the Gradle plugin itself can't do. Quarkus CLI is doing something that the Gradle plugin can't do because the Gradle plugin can't do the piece, it can't run the two things.
Yeah.
So you'd have to find a different way to launch your stuff in dev mode. But so the CLI makes that super easy. We can go through the whole dev process again. I could change all the endpoints the same way I did before, and it would all behave the same. Yeah, thank you for posting the CLI documentation. I meant to start there.
Actually, well, people probably know this. Like, I don't love Gradle, but I thought you could use like the no daemon thing, right? Does that not work?
No daemon, so it does not work. The no daemon thing now starts a daemon that stops. So you're always using the daemon. It always wants to use the daemon. And it will forcibly start a daemon and then stop it again. Or it will start the daemon, and it will also start a daemon for you if at any time a project is requesting something that doesn't match an already running daemon. So you may end up with multiples running.
Yeah.
But from a, as someone with years and years and years and years, I can understand why they did that, right? Like the daemon is just core to how all of Gradle runs.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
So completely. Trying to do like, oh, we have a daemon now, but then we do, like, I can understand why they're like, no, just no, it's always going to use a daemon in the end, right? It's one of those simplifying assumptions that just makes it much easier for them to focus on what they're doing. It's just super inconvenient when you want to do something like we're doing with Quarkus Dev, where we want the console again. And that's just, that's just this where we are. So like, I can run Quarkus build, which again, that will just invoke Gradle. So it's just whatever the Gradle tooling wants to be, it does the Gradle tasks for you. Some of what the other thing I can show you with this one, since I have this up.
Can I skip tests with build?
Yes. Yes. You say no tests.
All right.
I'm pretty sure that works. It might not. Yeah, no, it did. So there was a temporary bug where I had the logic flipped. I think that made it into 202. If not, it's in. Pico CLI is wonderful, but when you're looking at negatable options, I didn't have, and I'm like, how did I do that? And I figured it out last night. I was trying to fix some of the debug options. And I had a test for that one to make sure that the no, like which one you specified as the default, was correct. But I didn't have the thing for no tests. I'm like, how did I do that? This is the thing. Tests are great, but you have to remember to write them. They don't work when you don't write them. It just is annoying.
And double negation is always like really mind blowing.
Yes.
It's too hard to figure out.
I was like, we have some registry client stuff coming in where we want to make it easier for people to find the latest version and to find the extensions that apply to the version and all that stuff. And so we have another case where they want to have an option that has a no. And I'm like, just write the test to make sure that what happens comes out. So one of the things that I did when working on all of this, if I do dry run, it will show you what the command line was. So to let you know, this is the command line I put together based on the settings of the project, so you can see it.
Ah, cool.
Right, so it doesn't, so especially with dry run, it doesn't hide anything. So if I want to do dry run and I want to set in a property, that property will get propagated in, and you can see it shows up in both places. Why does it show? Oh, I know why. That's fixed. It shows up in two places. I was over eager in my Gradle stuff. That's pending fix right there. So it'll get fixed shortly. Specifying properties doesn't hurt. It just looks silly. So it only happens with Gradle. The Maven one doesn't do it. I had it in two places in the Gradle code by accident. If I will that work, or did I fix that yesterday? If I do QSS is my snapshot, who knows if this will work? Because I don't know if I broke myself last night. So we're off we're doing something dangerous, off the script.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So this would be a build, right? It only does it once, so it's fixed that. It had no value, so it shows up properly. And I also dropped respecifying that project directory. I do that. I was doing that for test, but I don't need to do that here, so I fixed that. The other thing I was looking at, like if you want to pass arguments to your application, how do you do that? How do you do that, Georgios? When you're doing a Quarkus dev and you want to pass arguments the usual way, what do you have to do? Do you know?
What kind of arguments do you mean?
Like I'm writing my own CLI and it takes command line arguments, but I want to run it in dev mode. Do you know how to do that?
I don't remember offhand, but there is a
it's a property. It's Quarkus.args, right?
Okay, right.
So with this one, I can do, I'm still in dry run mode, so I can do my double dash and I can say arg1, arg2.
That's nice.
And it'll just wrap it for you.
Nice. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yay! And this, because this is Gradle, here is the sneaky magic that we're using a temp file to do that second run. And that's a Gradle thing. That's because we need to create the command line and then have the Gradle build finish and then run the console.
Yes.
So,
right.
We're using a file to remember what all those arguments are. What else can we show? Oh, right. I was looking at it. So with Quarkus, I can list extensions. Right. So we can work with extensions here. And I can do list, I can show categories, I can add stuff, and I can remove stuff. Categories is new. I think it will just show, it'll show, because it's Gradle. Gradle has to still build first. It's annoying. But anyway, so here's all the available extension categories. This is flat. It exists all the time. But here it's showing you a hint, right? And this is the long form, Quarkus extensions list installable, which will give you the big list of every installable extension there is. And then you can do category. There's a shorter way to do this though. So if I do extension ls list, it'll show me these are the extensions that are present in this project.
Right.
I'm not sure why mutiny and small right context propagation come in, but that must be what the yeah, why would those be there?
By default?
Yeah, coming out of that project create? I have no idea. I'll have to go look at the thing.
Right.
Oh, right. This is build Gradle. So it's not here. So I don't know where that's coming from. I will have to go figure that out.
Are you in a different directory, maybe?
No, I am right there. You can see other thing. Okay, pencil in a bug for me, everybody. Why is that coming out?
Something to check when the show's over.
Yeah, what is that? Why is that showing up?
Alexei mentions maybe it's transitive dependencies.
I should hope not. I mean, they're not in the dependencies. Like, why would you want to bring in mutiny all the time? So if I do installable, I get the big list, right? That's a long list of things. So I can now do a category, and I could say observability. See, I have the short option, -I, -C, and Gradle. There, way shorter, right? I see a much shorter list of the things that I might want to be interested in adding.
Right, yeah. That's cool.
And then I can add them, and I don't need to put the Quarkus part on the front. Right, so I can just add my parameter, which doesn't by itself add Prometheus. Yes, sure. Go remember that your dependencies have updated. So that's the kind of thing. Now, what's interesting that we did also with Quarkus list, because there's a bit of a chicken and egg, sort of. When you're working with Quarkus list by default, it wants to do what's in a project. So like if I'm here and I do Quarkus txt list, it's going to, it does. It will go and figure out you're not in a project. Now this is a long form. I have something open. It doesn't work real super well when you're in like super big mode. But what it's trying to list for you is, I have to fix the columns.
So this is listing every extension because it's not in a Quarkus.
This is listing every extension. You can see what release it's coming from. So Camel's still at 2.0. This is related to the way we're starting to talk about. It's like, see, here's the Quarkus universe bomb. So you can tell it's coming from the universe bomb, but here's the versions of the installable or available extensions that you have. So it can now work. Extension list can now work outside of a project. So you can, which is useful because before it was like, let me create a project with extension, but I don't know what extensions I can choose from. So now, like in cat works and stuff, to be able to filter or search, so you can get down to, oh, this is the extension that I want to add, and now when I create my project, I know which extensions to specify.
Awesome.
So that's a new thing that the old CLI could not do. It couldn't work with this outside of a project.
Outside of Quarkus.
But so now it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do we have on the command line anymore? I don't remember. What else should we talk about?
You're probably gonna have to increase the size because now.
Oh yeah.
All
right, everybody. And I gotta do this because the thing doesn't resize. Like, it makes the window bigger.
Maybe just a tad bigger.
Yeah. No, I had to make it so that it would stay on the screen.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't change the window size to stay on the screen. You would think they'd be better about this by now. But anyway. So
it's only
that's the extension list stuff. You have your add and remove. We did build. We did dev. You do have completion. So you can see it even tells you, here's what you should do to add your completion to your shell.
Nice.
So that should be there.
Awesome for everybody who's lazy.
Yes.
And as a developer, you should be.
So there's my completion, so I can walk my way through.
Really nice. Yeah.
And I think, so there's some things that are coming. And so I said earlier, like, I would like input from everybody that is watching this talk. There's some things that are coming. Like, one of the things, if you look at the options for build, for example, build has a couple options, some of which are how to build a native executable. Now, building a native executable is potentially more interesting than it should be. Because, well, let's think about all of the options that you have, how long those options can get, and whether or not those options should be specified on the command line or in your application properties. For example, do you want to use Podman or not? Do you want to use a container or not?
Yeah.
right? So like I work on a Mac. I also work on a Linux box, but when I'm working on a Mac, you and I have had this conversation before. If I'm just doing native and I have my Gradle VM set up, I get a Mac native binary.
Yes, correct.
But if I build with a container, I get a Linux native binary.
Mm-hmm.
And those two things are named the same, and they will overwrite each other based on whichever I did last.
Ah, right. Yeah. Okay.
Which we opened a bug for, because I'm like, we really should just put the platform in there, because then we don't have to fight about which way you do this. So the question is, like for my Monster Combat app, for example, I have the flags I need to build with a container in the POM, right? And I can, these arguments get passed, any extra arguments get passed in. So I can specify a profile for Maven if I'm using Maven. Right. If I want to use Quarkus build for it, I can still pass in Maven args, or I can specify additional properties. So I can just keep using the properties if I want. But one of the things I'm thinking about is what a config command could look like. So I could say Quarkus config, I don't know what I want to call it, but like always use Podman. Which just means whenever I then do with the native option, it'll be like, oh yeah, and the config says use Podman. Okay, so I'll put the Podman property on.
So you're saying that you would have like some like global configuration that applies to all Quarkus projects that have been
my preference is I use Podman on this machine, so I don't want to put it in the like I don't want to put it in my Maven POM or in my build Gradle file, because it's just me on my whatever. I don't have Docker. I only have Podman.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that could be like a preference, and the Quarkus CLI will just add the Podman property because you've said that's what your preference is.
Yeah, that's
so like that's one thing I'm thinking about. And then with some of the other things that we have coming, where we're looking at if where is the best way to show it? I want to like type in the restream. It doesn't work.
That won't
console,
work.
Girl. Won't work. If I go to the ext again, yes, this way. This is one of the places that this came up if you saw it before. But we have the notion of streams or platforms. And a stream, we will explain that more as that officially rolls out. But the general gist is it's a way to get to whatever specific version I want. So like I can do a P for platform, and I can just say 2.0.1.final. And it'll show me this stuff for 2.0.1.final. And so I can specify versions that way. But we will have some things with registries where you can say, okay, my company, I need to use this, I need to use these first because I'm paying Red Hat customer, for example, and I only want the Red Hat, I want the Red Hat built Quarkus. That's the one that has to be first. And then maybe I'll fall back to the community ones. But then you could say for a project, this is a community project. I want to use the community one, even though my usual default is to use the RHBQ one, right? So it's like we're thinking our way through how that kind of config and preference behavior should work, so you can tweak how the Quarkus CLI works, either per project or then globally.
When all the stream and registry stuff lands, I think that we'll also have to have Alexei on the show, who's chatted earlier, so he can you and him and Max can help us understand what this what all this stuff is. Like I don't even know. Aside from the really high level idea, I don't know how this stuff works.
Well, it's really it's interesting because before I came to Red Hat, I worked on a open source project that lived for a hot minute. But one of the things that it was talking about, or that it was trying to do, was the notion of a like a blessed.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Or official source thing, right?
So you have like a ton of extensions. So in Quarkus terms, like a company could say that they're like a 500 extensions, but I only want my developers to use like 50 of them or something like that. Is that the idea?
Yes, and that way, if you pick, so like the stream parameter, for example, the stream stuff is what interacts with the registry. So I would be able to use a platform key with a stream ID, and that means my Quarkus project would only get this definition of a platform, which then means within that project, if I do ext list, I will see the extensions that are in the blessed list.
Awesome.
Right, and that's, like on one hand, it's constraining, but on the other hand, we also are all aware now of toolchain risk, right? And so, you know, there's definitely a use case to say we're going to stick within this list that we've evaluated or blessed or we're maintaining. Or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, for large enterprises, yeah, that makes perfect sense because, yeah, let's face it, it's not all small startups and people on their own just creating cool apps. I mean, the Quarkus is meant to be used in the enterprise, right? So yeah,
that's right.
These are concerns that need to be addressed.
Yeah, so that's two things that I'm thinking about. This is how we manage these registries to make those more obvious and how you manage it, and then how to deal with this notion of config or preferences for how you want the CLI to behave. Because again, one of my goals is to make, because I have a terrible memory, like I don't want to go Google or search or rummage for the big property name that I have to paste in. Because that's what ends up happening. I'm like, I don't know what that property was. I have to go find it and then paste it. And it's like, wow. And I think depending on how it's used, it also, that's why I'm really thinking about these native arguments, right? There's lots of reasons to have these things in your, either set in your POM, because they could be associated with the profile, for example, or in your application properties, if that's the consistent way you want to do things. But then you won't get into the situation like I have with my Monster Combat app. And this is where, you remember you and I were talking about this, and this is where the Quarkus integration test came from. But it wasn't actually my problem. So, I mean, it kind of was. But like, if I'm running my build for Monster Combat on my laptop, I can't run the build and the test because it builds the Docker images in the middle, which overlays the native image. And so then the tests don't run. And so you guys created the Quarkus integration test for that.
Correct.
Because that says use the product image so that you're looking like, so you're running your integration tests against the built image, which is kind of right. But I would really like to test the platform native image and not just my Docker image too. So like my Monster Combat app in that POM has some really shady shit to be like, oh, you're on a Mac, so we're just going to not do these steps because it won't work. And I was like, no, that's so bad. It's just, but it's all these tweaking of properties. So it's like, I'm really trying to figure out how can I make it so that the CLI can have some simple options to toggle those, especially once you get into the native compilation stuff. Like, how can I tweak that behavior to say build and test the platform native image or build and test the container image, right? So we could toggle on or off which one. And maybe that ends up being, we do go and name our native things with the platform, and it ends up I just have to add the profile thing or something. Like, it may be that I don't end up doing it the way I'm kind of noodling on. But I would really love for more people to give me input, especially about pain. Like, native images are great, but I have a hard time with fill in the blank, tell me what hurts, so that the CLI can address that.
A theme from today's show, right? That we really want feedback. Like, we always want feedback, but we especially want feedback now on the CLI stuff because it's so new, and we want people to try it out and tell us what their pain points are, right?
Yeah. So the last thing that I'll show real briefly, just in case people haven't seen it. Why am I doing this way? I don't know why. I don't know why she swallowed a fly. So if I do, don't judge. I'm so weird. If I do a JBang, Oh no, I gotta do Q2, which I don't have the thing for, but that's okay because I want to create with JBang and call it other thing. That doesn't work. Just do that because again, I have zero imagination. So if I go to the JBang app and I don't know how many people have seen what a JBang app looks like to even begin with. Now the JBang app has some limitations with regard to Quarkus at the moment. So again, for all of what the CLI does, it's effectively wrapping an invocation of the underlying dev tool.
Right.
And JBang itself has a different feel about what it's doing, right? So you can run a script and it'll just compile and run it for you. It does all of the, like, you don't ever have to remember Java-CP, blah, 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 blah. Like it just does all that stuff for you, right? But so like dev mode, Quarkus dev mode, we don't have working yet. Because how we get there is probably somewhere along the live edit path for JBang, but we haven't sorted that out. But
right.
I love what Max is doing with JBang. He's taking all of the existing Java rules and saying, yeah, I don't think so. We just won't do that. So, like you declare your depths right in there. I mean, it simplifies it, but it breaks your head because it's like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. And I have to ask him, like, I don't know how to make VS Code happy because it doesn't know what these dependencies are. I know there's a way. I just don't have it in VS Code yet. VS Code is confused because it doesn't know that I have these around, right? But it's basically the same, and it's got my main there, and this goes like it goes super quick. So if I do Quarkus build, again, I'm just wrapping. So Quarkus build goes so fast. Well, except when it has to do 202 final. Oh, he sneaky bugger. He fixed that already. Okay, so that's still that you can tell actually when I was doing this last night, it went really fast and I was like, did it do anything? There, it did that. And I'm like, wow. I don't know that it did anything.
Yeah, that's just too fast.
This time it had to resolve stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But so then if I put verbose back on, I'm like, oh no, it actually did run. Okay, that's good.
Nice.
And it does show some, I might go and hide that too. It shows some debug stuff from what Quarkus itself is doing. Maybe I'll leave it, I don't know. It shows that it read all of your options and what it did. So I'll have to decide if everybody wants that still there, if they want it to be quieter without the debug stuff.
Well, yeah, I think when you're asking for verbose output, you do want to see this stuff, right?
Yeah, good. Yeah, so this makes sure, okay, the stuff that I said did come out. Because that was when we were doing the double negatives. That was like, no, it's not, no, that's wrong. Yeah, so that's fine. But anyway, so that's what like if you guys want to just break your heads on some Friday because you feel like it, you should go play with the JBang stuff because it does turn everything inside out. You just have to do a lot less to get things started. And we will eventually get dev mode working with, so that if you use JBang to make a Quarkus app, you can still run and develop that in dev mode with JBang's live edit. We got to figure out how to resolve those.
Yeah, sounds tricky.
Well, JBang's edit mode puts it so like if I do, oh goodness, my brain. How do I want to do that? No, I want to get out because I'll show you what it does. It's a little weird. I'm here, and if I do edit, now I'm showing Max's CLI. See, what am I doing? I'm so off topic. It's great, but see, it wants to do it'll do the edit, and I can do live. You can see the live option is there, and then I point to the script. Oh, so if I do live, what else did I need to do? I forget. I don't think I need to do anything else. And I say I want to do source main Java. That's what I'm editing live. Oh, there's a way. -O, open, code, -open. That's what I want. I want open. Code. Okay. You see, it'll run it. It'll open code for me, but it put it in this JBang cache place, which is not where I currently am. So it's because when you install a script with JBang, it puts it in this cache place, and then that's where it finds it. So like this edit mode is going and updating the installed one, which theoretically is what you want, kind of.
Yeah.
But so you got to figure out
there's a lot of stuff that needs to be sorted out. Yeah, to fall into place for this to be seamless. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but it's here, and if I update this right here, JBang's watching for changes. So JBang has kind of an equivalent-ish to what Quarkus Dev Mode does. So we just have to sort it out when you're working with a Quarkus app itself.
Yeah.
It's great. We have the best circle between Quarkus and JBang. It's really funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, the synergy there is great. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it gets to a bit of an over-under problem, too. Which one is driving what? Because I think Max is right now converting JBang itself to be a Quarkus project to get the native build, and then awesome. He's awesome. It's really backwards. So does anybody else have questions? We have like 12 minutes.
I have a question, actually. Yes. Is the CLI, I suppose, is a Quarkus application itself, right?
It is. It is.
So it's the Pico CLI extension, and then you've added a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yes.
Awesome. And is it a native binary, or?
At the moment, it can be. We're not distributing that one quite yet. Okay. We're in the process. But if you're looking at the Quarkus code base, it's under DevTools CLI. It is, in fact, a Quarkus main.
Cool.
It's got the Pico CLI stuff in it. We do all kinds of crazy stuff in there to make the messages better. So that's why it's like, if you think the messages are crap, tell me. I'll fix them.
Nice.
I want it to be a nice experience. But yeah, it's all here.
Lovely. I'll check it out. So yeah, folks, if you have any questions, now's the time. If you don't have any questions now, but you first want to play with this and like see what you like, what you love, what you don't love, then yeah, just we're on the Zulip chat. Is probably the easiest place and fastest place to communicate, right?
Yep.
So yeah, just throw out your ideas, and I'm sure Erin will be more than happy to discuss with you and see how we can come up with better solutions.
Yes. Yeah, CLIs like this are fundamentally subjective to some extent. Like, you can't make everybody happy, but again, my goal is to make stuff simpler, so you have to remember less and type less, and to make sure that this thing is self-describing. Ooh, if you're running Quarkus in dev mode before you open the dev UI. I don't know exactly what you mean. If you're running in dev mode, you're not running from a container.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to parse the question. When running in dev mode before you open the dev UI, what happens if I run from inside a container? Well, how would you be running inside a container, right? Because
I think dev mode can be. You could be thinking about this.
Are we talking about remote dev mode? Because if in remote dev mode, I think we've disabled the dev UI. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
I think there's a way to turn it on. So I think remote dev mode is an issue we have open. And I think the console, Stewart's console, which is where that D command comes in. It's that continuous testing console. It would have to know what that host was to be able to give the URI
Yeah, when we're talking about Quarkus dev, then that's all local, right? I don't think remote dev starts that console at all.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that the dev UI isn't available either. So yeah, a remote dev is like it's a fascinating, let's say, concept, but it has like specific limitations. So yeah, some of the stuff you see in regular dev mode does not work on remote dev mode.
Yeah, that's when you would be So we have an existing issue open to get remote dev working with the CLI. So I would probably say it's going to be the existing dev command rather than having two commands. And it would be a remote option. And then that remote option, you'd have to specify, I don't know, something about where your remote target lives. Okay. Because you have to build a mutable jar. So you have to do a bunch of things to get remote dev working.
So basically what remote dev does now, what it does really well, is that it syncs changes from your local environment to the remote environment. But if you're going to have to make changes to it, like run tests, stuff like that, that's kind of like weird. So yeah, we'd have to figure it out how that actually works.
They have a live reload URL. That's what it is. So it doesn't figure it out. It's a config. You have to put the app route URL as. So what I might do in getting remote dev to work such that you wouldn't have to change application.properties is I would make it so you could specify that URL on the command line for remote, for example, like -- remote and what that live reload URL is. And then we would set the package type. We could set all those properties, run the build, and right? I think that's what we would.
Right, yeah. Right. Then we have another question. Actually, it's not a question, it's a statement. CLI looks really, really good. Definitely going to try it out. Nice work. Thank you.
Yay.
I'm sure Erin's really happy, but she'd be even more happy if you say it's great, but I want this fixed. That'd be even better.
I want this fixed. I want this to work better. This was really annoying. I especially want things that are like feedback on things you do with Maven or with Gradle that are hard to remember. Things that really make this, so the CLI really makes your life easier. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, cool. So like we have a blog post out there on Red Hat Land that talks about the mutable jar behavior. So I will have to go through it when we get the remote dev working, because there's a double step there. Like there's the mutable jar build that has to go through a pipeline to deploy the mutable jar, and then you need the live reload. It's like there's several steps that have to happen. I think that's why it all has to go through application.properties. But we could definitely maybe use the CLI to connect. Can we build as a native image
without creating a reflection config file in Quarkus CLI? Well, so that's a basic like Quarkus question, right? So with Quarkus, if you use the extensions and you're not like adding other weird libraries or something, then you just build a native image. You do package -p native or d native, and that just works, right? You don't need to specify anything on your own in almost all cases. So if you have your own code that does reflection or stuff like that, then you would have to specify this file. Or if you're using a library that does weird stuff, then again, you have to come up with a GraalVM specific configuration for it. But yeah, just most Quarkus applications will just do Quarkus build -- native, and that should just work.
It should work. I have fine tuning to do with this path. So like this is something where Thomas was saying he thought the default behavior for Quarkus native, for just adding the -- native, should be that it would set the flag to build it with a container, right? Because then you don't have to worry about GraalVM version alignment. It'll just work. But the downside of that is if I'm on a Mac, I end up with a binary that I can't run. Because it'll build a Linux binary and not a Mac binary. So if I'm not prepared for that to have happened, it won't make sense to me why my native build won't work.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to fuss with, like, I mean, obviously, like Quarkus build -- native, it is now building the native image, and life is great. And again, with reflection config stuff, that really depends on the library that you're using, or if you have elements in your application that do rely on reflection. And I think we have some things where you shouldn't necessarily have to create a reflection config file, right? We should be able to do annotations to identify things that should be eligible for reflection, right? So you can skip making that file.
Yeah, if it's your code, then yeah, there's this register for reflection annotation that makes it eligible for reflection. But yeah, if it's like stuff you can't touch, then yeah, you have to specify the configuration file. Any more questions, folks? We have a couple more minutes.
If you look here. So we haven't, that's the extensions. Where's the one for?
Yeah. I think.
Here it is.
Yeah, we
right
have a separate section.
It's right here.
So
it needs to be bigger. But anyway, so we have an annotation, so you don't have to do the config file when you know that it's a class. Again, it's if you can get your hooks, if you can get your mitts on the class.
Or you could write an extension.
We can do this. Yeah, the other option is to write an extension. But this one, for example, you can have a reflection configuration, and you can list the classes that need to be eligible for reflection in one place.
Right. Yeah. We can list classes by name. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Which is more like, honestly, that's more like some of Spring's bean configuration classes, where you can list, you have your one configuration place, and you can tweak behavior from there. So that should not be a foreign concept. Yeah, but it's like some of these build args, how we might get to there. Those should really be in your application properties, though. Actually, those aren't going to move.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think we're at the top of the hour. Anything else you want to add before we?
You did put in in the chat. You did put in the chat. You did put in the
CLI documentation.
That, but no, the world tour schedule.
Yes, we have that as well in the chat. Yeah.
There you go.
Just Quarkus.io/world tour.
So that's here. And so where are we? We're July, right?
Yeah.
Erin has no concept of time. So one was yesterday, and there's another one on the 20th.
You're okay. Excellent.
And I'm there. Yeah, that's next week.
Okay.
Jason, I don't think is going to be able to make it, so I will have to find a substitute. But that's next week.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time, Erin.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. And like we said, try Quarkus CLI out and bring your feedback to either Quarkus Dev mailing list or the Quarkus Zulip chat.
Please,
and we'll see you soon, everybody. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, everybody. Bye.